If you are new here, this is part of a series I'm doing where I take a client of mine through the cutting process week by week so you can see what a normal cutting phase looks like, including how to make macro and cardio adjustments, why we do them, and many of the mindset challenges that come up along the way and how to overcome them. Alright, the first 2 weeks of Vivyen's cuts are in the books, and just as a heads up, I'm going to take you through week by week every single time I do an update. It's just most updates are going to have multiple weeks in one rather than doing an actual video every single week. As a reminder, or if you missed the first video a couple weeks ago, to start Vivyen's cut, we reduced her calories by about 530 and increased her cardio by 35 minutes for the week. And in the first week, she saw on average a 0.9 pound loss for the week. Now, if you didn't catch the series where I took her through the reverse, where I explained why I like weekly averages, just as a real quick heads up, the reason I like to do weekly averages is because it not only helps give more accurate data, but it also usually creates a healthier relationship with the scale because you can see the weight fluctuations that happen on a daily basis. Because scale weight on a daily basis can fluctuate up to several pounds, and almost none of the reasons for that fluctuation have anything to do with body fat. It's things like stress and sleep and hormones and sodium intake and how much food is still digesting in your system and training inflammation and on and on and on. So just seeing these daily fluctuations can help you understand that you can't put so much pressure on every time you step on a scale. Plus, when you do every single day, now you're taking an average of those 7 days. It's only a seventh of your weight rather than putting so much pressure for stepping on the scale. Not only that, but it also can take away the problem with a weekly weigh-in where that last day that you actually weigh in, you could be 1 week abnormally high or low, and then the next week be abnormally high or low the opposite way. So say for instance, it shows that you lost 3 pounds the week before, but that was probably not a very accurate number. Maybe you were just dehydrated or just ate most of your food earlier in the day, had less sodium than usual, etc. And then the next week, maybe you're bloated, maybe you're a little bit hormonal, maybe you're extra sore from your training, maybe you had more sodium, ate more food later at night, so it's still digesting. Now it shows you're up in weight. Well, the average for the week could actually show you down like 1.5 pounds, whereas the weekly weigh-in could actually show you're up 2 or 3 pounds, and that's really mentally defeating, so this takes that away. Just make sure when you do weigh yourself, you try to make it as consistent as possible, and the most consistent time of the day is definitely going to be first thing in the morning, after waking up, after going to the bathroom, and before eating or drinking anything, and you want to do it either nude or in the same clothes as well. Now back to Vivyen's first week, 0.9 pounds is not a bad loss. That's within range of what I would like to see from her. But no matter what, that first week, I would almost never make a change because there's just so many different reasons and people respond so differently. Some people, it just takes time for the body to kind of get going and to respond. Some people see a big drop right away and then it slows down again. There's just a lot of variables. So I usually like to wait at least a week. But 0.9 pounds for her at her body weight is actually a pretty reasonable loss. So no matter what, we definitely weren't making changes in week 1. Now, Vivyen's feedback for that first week was that hunger really wasn't bad yet. She wasn't having any struggles there. However, she was just trying to get used to the lower macros, eating a little bit less food and making some adjustments. For the most part, it sounds like her foods were relatively similar, just eating a little bit less. And the only real question she had for me was pace of cardio, which is a good opportunity to explain what I typically recommend. And that is that I don't really look at heart rates, so to speak. I usually look at more kind of how heavy you're breathing. So for her, I was saying a lighter to more moderate intensity where you could hold a conversation if you needed to, but it would be a little bit more challenging, but you could still do it for sure. You're not absolutely like gasping, but it's not like you're doing nothing either. And I just prefer for the most part to do lighter cardio just because it's so much easier to recover from, especially for Vivyen being a performance athlete and needing to deal with powerlifting. I just don't want to beat her down too much with higher intensity cardio. Now for week 2, Vivyen actually saw a really big drop in the scale for her of 2 pounds on average for the week, but there's a few things you need to keep in mind here. We're looking to keep on average her weight loss between about 0.5 and 1% to make sure she's maintaining as much muscle mass as possible. If you go much over that on average, then you're jeopardizing lean body mass loss, and we really don't want that for her. So this would be over that because at 1%, that'd only be about 1.3 pounds. However, it's just 1 week. We're looking at averages here, and if you look at the first 2 weeks, the average would be 1.5, which is still a little bit above, but nothing concerning, especially to start the process because a lot of crazy things can happen in the first couple weeks. And you're looking at things like going through glycogen stores and things like that. So to me, everything's going well. She's responding really well. No need to make any changes, and I think things will probably slow down next week. Now, I did mention to Vivyen that after this third week coming up, we will probably add in a double refeed approach, and how I do it will just kind of depend on how her body responds. If she continues to see this big pace of weight loss, which I don't think she will, but if she does, then we'll just add the double refeed on top of her current macros. If it's a more reasonable pace, what we'll probably do is take the double refeed and adjust her calories on low days and high days to make the average for the week about the same, but just have that refeed approach. And the reason I want to do this is I have just found that it just seems like double refeeds are extremely helpful, especially for someone who doesn't have a lot of weight to lose. This is not only where we can keep muscle mass better, but we can also see better hormonal improvements, better metabolic rate improvements, and just keep her in a better spot to see better progress long term. So I have started implementing them sooner than I used to, and especially for someone who isn't obese, I like to go right to a double refeed rather than going from the straight up approach to a single day refeed to a double refeed. Obese people, it doesn't seem to make quite as big of a difference, but for someone like Vivyen, the double refeed can make a huge difference. Mindset-wise, Vivyen did mention that even though she's clearly seeing results, she's losing weight, measurements are coming down, she said she's having days where she's feeling overweight and more fluffy, and she wanted to know if that was normal, which the answer is absolutely, undoubtedly, yes, yes, yes. It is very common, and it doesn't even matter if you're in a reverse or if you're in a cut or if you're thin or if you're obese or anything else. We all have these kind of fat days, and it's really hard to be objective with yourself, and this is part of that process. And the reason it's so worth mentioning this is because so many people feel like they're alone in these struggles. So many people feel like these thoughts that they have, there's something wrong with them. Why don't other people feel this way? And it's just so important to know that all these thoughts that almost everyone has, everyone else feels this way. Everyone, they just don't talk about it. Nobody puts it out there. So just understand, if you feel this way sometimes, you are not alone. It's very normal, but this is also where having a coach where someone can be a little bit more objective is really helpful, because when we get in our head, it gets really difficult. Anything in your head is based on emotions. When it's out loud or somebody else, it becomes logic. And just for the record, that goes for pretty much all mental struggles out there. Now, if you're interested in discovering how to go through a lean bulk using a reverse diet so you can build muscle optimally without adding unnecessary body fat and set yourself up for a good cut like this, then make sure you check out this top video and I'll take you through that process. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments below and I'll definitely get back to you, and I'll see you next time.